This is a special behind-the-scenes version of the Super Sunday Challenge. And the big problem we've kind of got on this channel is that I've got rather good at the current format. And I think I've done 4 in a row that I've won. And whilst I love winning, absolutely, the whole point is that this is meant to be a challenge. This is meant to be the hardest word games challenge on the internet. So we do need to make this harder. Absolutely. And I've been reviewing the comments, and one of the games that has been suggested to me is the game of Squaredle. Now, Squaredle is basically Wordle, but it's in a grid. And there are 6 different Wordle words that you need to find. So, for example, let's have a little look at an example game here. See, that's a 5-letter word, that's a 5-letter word, and that's a 5-letter word, and there's one down there. There are 6 in total, and I'm thinking, hold on, that fits quite well for a possible Word 500 solve. So my thinking is, I'm going to move Squaredle and Word 500 to the end of the challenge. I now need to find a game that fits in the old slot for Word 500, and it will be even bigger. And I decided, well, I was going to maybe experiment behind the scenes, but you know what? I thought this was a nice opportunity to also show you how it all works behind the scenes, how it works in my setup. Now, you might not be surprised to see that I use OBS to do the recording. In fact, I'm using OBS right now to do it. Hello! That's why there's seemingly an infinite number of Ginjanners. So what I need to do is amend the display in OBS to basically make sure that all of the kind of words go on stream. Because you can see, when I do the challenge, this is an example from last week, on the 16th of June, I have all the words and all the games here in this nice little interface. So I now need to amend OBS to take that into account. Now how do these words get on stream? How is it in OBS that I make it happen? The answer is this. I actually have an Excel file which drives all of it. It basically drives everything. So when I'm doing the Super Sunday Challenge, as I go along, I'm basically updating this spreadsheet. So you've got the games and you've got the words. So the first thing I need to do is look at this grid and work out how I'm going to do it. Now, what this Excel does, it's quite smart actually, every time I put in an answer to a game, it outputs text files on my local file system, which OBS then can read. So that's what drives all the graphics. And I do this really for efficiency purposes. I could craft edit each video, but to be honest, I end up spending about 50 minutes on the recording, and it takes me a good hour to then even just edit things up, right? So I like to do the graphics on the fly live, and it's why often you see mistakes in my video, because maybe when I'm live I've not thought about pressing a button, you know, etc, etc. So the first thing I need to do is actually amend this Excel. But let's describe how I'm going to change, or how I've changed the Super Sunday Challenge, because this behind the scenes will be coming after the next episode. Well, what I need is basically a game section C, if you think of it this way, because what I'm going to do is this, and let's mock it out first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Squaredle here, and Squaredle has 6 words. So Squaredle 1 to 6. And then what we'll do is we'll move Word 500 to the final slot. I love ending the Super Sunday Challenge always on Word 500. Now that leaves a gap in section B. The key to getting a balance for the Super Sunday Challenge is understanding how many guesses each game has. So for example, Word 500 and Hardle are always at the end of the section, because Word 500 allows 8 guesses, as does Hardle. So I could, for sake of argument, move Hardle to the end of section B. It's absolutely fine. That leaves a gap here. Now, I can't move Wordle down, because if I move Wordle down, that basically means 5 of the guesses will be compulsory. Doesn't allow any fillers. Now, yeah, maybe that would technically work for Wordle, but I don't like it, because then that's basically luck. And the whole point of this challenge is it needs to be difficult, but I don't want it overly relying on luck. The game I think I'm going to bring back is something that I did remove from the last iteration of the Super Sunday Challenge, is Crystal Crossle. Now, I like Crystal Crossle. as a game. The only thing I don't like about Crystal Crossle is basically the rules are impossible to explain. So this is Crystal Crossle. It's when you run words on the left-hand side, it runs words in blue, and the clues it gives in terms of colors, red, green, and yellow, pertain both to the secret word and the words it does in blue. So it's a little bit of a kind of a mind-bending game. That's the basic premise and the rules of Crystal Crossle. But honestly, every time I play Crystal Crossle, everyone pretty much in the comments goes, "What is this game? Explain it. I'm confused." And honestly, I found about a million different ways of explaining it, and they're all rubbish. I'm dreadful at explaining this game. That said, here's the thing: 8 guesses. 8 guesses, meaning it does sit quite well in the Super Sunday Challenge. So back it comes. I did want to get Double Dabble in. So I play Double Dabble in the Daily Word Games Challenge, you know, the shorts version of this. But Double Dabble, I think, kind of needs to go at the beginning, potentially. Certainly, it doesn't have 8 guesses. It has about, I think, 6, maybe even 5 guesses, which is no good. So it would need to be up here. And honestly, these games are kind of here for a reason. They're in this order for a reason. Take Spottle. It's always the lead-out game because it's a really hard game. If I put it up the order, I just wouldn't get it. Murder as well is a game that's slept on. It cannot be higher than 2 because you probably just lose your lives in the first 2 guesses. And Fibble, I daren't get higher than 3 in the order because, well, you know how difficult a game that is, right? That's just not going to be any good. The higher up in the game section it is, the more potential fillers and, let's say, discretionary words that I can run. And generally speaking, the higher up the order it is, the harder the game is. So, for example, Polygonal Mini, it actually is one of the easiest games because it's like Wordle, but it also gives you clues as to the shapes at the top of the game. So that is always going to be pretty much down the order. And between Crystal Crossle is harder than Hardle. So I like that order. Great. Now what I need to do is actually do some coding because this actually isn't going to work. I won't put you through the coding process, but basically I now need to create some new text files and then link it in OBS. Well, I think this is now working. I've now updated my Excel sheet, which should hopefully work. And I've created 2 OBS scenes to kind of drive it. So this has Game Section A, Game Section B, with the new Crystal Crossle. In fact, actually, let's move that back a little bit. Crystal Crossle needs a bit of extra space. And when we finish Game Section A, we can then switch to this. I just noticed, actually, all of the Squaredles are capitals and none of the rest are. That's going to annoy me. So let me just fix that right now. Perfect. There we go. So now we've got Squaredle, all 6 words for Squaredle, and Word 500 right at the end. And if you've ever wondered how the actual timer works, well, this is basically how this works. On my Super Sunday interface, on the right-hand side, I always have the timer. So it allows me to pause between games when I'm kind of setting things up, or it allows me, if I make a mistake, to reset the timer, you know what I mean? So if I reset it, look, it goes back to the 42 minutes. Now, I've got to make a decision now. How many minutes are we going to run this challenge for? Because, 42 minutes, I'm not sure that's going to be enough, Squaredle is not an easy game I'm not well practiced with. I mean, recently I've been fixing the Super Sunday Challenge with like 10 minutes to spare, so I still think we do need to increase the time, though. Maybe 45 minutes? I think it's going to be quite tough, but hey, that's the challenge, right? Got to do it in 45 minutes. I've also got to amend things like the date. So, oh, that's not the right one. Yeah, so if I see there, it says Sunday the 16th. Nah, it's 23rd. Always got to remember, amend the date. And the final thing I need to do, press reset on the Excel. Pressing reset clears all of the words, starts from the scratch. Lovely. Starting from the 23rd. I think I'm ready to start the Super Sunday Challenge now. So that was just a tiny little window into the Super Sunday Challenge behind the scenes, how I set up each challenge. If you're interested in knowing more, then let me know in the comments, because I'm tempted to also do like a behind the scenes after the Super Sunday recording. How do I do the edits? And how do I get it up to TikTok and YouTube? If you're interested in knowing more, I'd love to do a video for how I do the editing as well. I use some interesting software to really halve the time for the edits. It literally only takes me about 15 to 20 minutes to edit each episode, which is insane because it used to take me 3 hours. It's the only way I can kind of commit to doing these big videos every week. But yeah, if you fancy learning a little bit more how I do that, I'd love to show you. In the meantime, thank you all for your support. I really appreciate it. Your likes, your comments, and your positivity. I'll be back doing the daily shorts next week as well. And of course, the Super Sunday Challenge will be back next week. See you then.